Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, from Melbourne, Australia. My name is Bruce Risley, and I am here to talk to you about Patrick White, an Australian author, 1912 to 1990, often described as the great unread novelist. And as an Australian, I can assure you that is a fitting title. Up until my involvement in this program, I must admit that I had limited exposure to Patrick and had actually read none of his work. So Patrick White was born in England in 1912 while his parents were travelling there. His father, Victor Martindale White, was the son of wealthy graziers, and his mother, Ruth White nee Withycombe, was also the daughter of wealthy graziers or farmers or ranchers in Australia. Patrick's father's family had moved to New South Wales and settled there in 1896 and continued to own the property up until his father's death. So Patrick was born in London, and at 6 months old, he was brought back to Australia. He stayed in Australia, but unfortunately had chronic asthma. His family sent him to several schools, trying different climates and atmospheres to see if this would improve his condition. Unfortunately, it didn't. His last Australian school got into financial trouble, and the headmaster suggested that Patrick go to England. One, because the climate was probably more temperate and better for Patrick's health. Two, because of the quality of the education. And three, to assimilate the colonial boy into English society. The 4 years that Patrick were there were not good. And Patrick described it as a 4-year prison sentence. He was withdrawn with limited social contact and a very small network of friends. At the completion of this schooling, Patrick returned to Australia, where he worked on his family's property and then went as a jackaroo to the New South Wales Highlands at a Minimi on a property that was 73 square kilometres, where he worked as what we call a jackaroo, an apprentice stockman, learning about stock and how to manage a property. He returned to his family, and then after discussion was allowed to return to King's College, which he attended from 1932 until 1935, where he studied modern languages. Shortly after that, he wrote his first novel, or published his first novel, Happy Valley, in 1939, and then his second novel was published, The Living Dead, in 1941. Patrick served in the British Air Force as an intelligence officer during the war. He went across Europe, the Middle East, and Greece. It was in Greece where he met his life partner, Manolo Lascaris, and they were together until, unfortunately, Patrick died. Patrick was the author of 12 novels, several plays, 2 books, 3 short stories, several screenplays, and his autobiography, Floors in the Glass, in 1981. Patrick's travels were extensive. Just his travels would consume more than the time that I have allocated for this short presentation. But it was a very interesting and very socially interactive time in his life. And if you have the opportunity, I would suggest that you have a look at that. He was denied the Nobel Prize in 1971 when Alexander Solzhenitsyn won it, and was very, very depressed about it. However, in 1973, he was nominated and awarded the Nobel Prize and accepted it, despite the fact that he claimed that he would never accept another prize. After the acceptance of his Nobel Prize and his rise in public notoriety, Patrick spoke out about Australia's involvement in the Vietnam War. And on top of that, or in spite of that, Patrick was invited to attend the Australian Parliament. Patrick was only the second person, non government, to be invited into the House, the first one being an aviator in 1928, and Patrick is the only one since. So this was a great honour which he accepted, probably because he was ideologically aligned to the government. In 1974, Patrick was awarded the Australian of the Year. Patrick described this award to his friends as an ordeal. Patrick had to go through the swimmers, the runners, and the athletes to receive his award. Traditionally, the Australian of the Year has been a runner, a swimmer, or an athlete, not a literary icon. Patrick's health began to decline seriously in the 1970s. His teeth became infected, his eyesight began to fail, and his chronic lung condition returned. This restricted his travel, his social engagements, and his activities, but he still had a full and rich life. In 1981, Patrick published his autobiography, Flaws in the Glass. Now, Flaws in the Glass is a self-portrait of Patrick. It explores issues that he had not discussed much publicly, and in fact, not at all in some cases. He described his homosexuality, its effects, and the results of that. He described his disdain for the royal family and his shame at Australian subservience to the British